Wednesday of the 6th week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the letter of St. James. Know this, my dear brothers and sisters. Everyone should be quick to hear, slow to speak, slow to anger, for anger does not accomplish the righteousness of God. Therefore, put away all filth and evil excess, and humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your souls. Be doers of the word and not hearers only, deluding yourselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his own face in a mirror. He sees himself, then goes off and promptly forgets what he looked like. But the one who peers into the perfect law of freedom and perseveres, and is not a hearer who forgets, but a doer who acts, such a one shall be blessed in what he does. If anyone thinks he is religious and does not bridle his tongue but deceives his heart, his religion is vain. Religion that is pure and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, "Who shall live on your holy mountain, O Lord?" He who walks blamelessly and does justice, who thinks the truth in his heart and slanders not with his tongue. Who shall live on your holy mountain, O Lord? Who harms not his fellow man, nor takes up a reproach against his neighbor, by whom the reprobate is despised, while he honors those who fear the Lord. Who shall live on your holy mountain, O Lord? Who lends not his money at usury, and accepts no bribe against the innocent. He who does these things shall never be disturbed. Who shall live on your holy mountain, O Lord?
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. When Jesus and his disciples arrived at Bethsaida, people brought to him a blind man and begged Jesus to touch him. He took the blind man by the hand and led him outside the village. Putting spittle on his eyes, he laid his hands on the man and asked, "Do you see anything?" Looking up, the man replied, "I see people looking like trees and walking." Then he laid hands on the man's eyes a second time, and he saw clearly. His sight was restored, and he could see everything distinctly. Then he sent him home and said, "Do not even go into the village." The Gospel of the Lord.
Wednesday of the 6th week in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from the letter of James, chapter 1, verses 19 to 27. James first of all advises the community to be slow in speaking and quick in hearing, to not have to give one's opinion on everything, to not have to argue about everything, but rather to be quick to learn, to listen to what people are saying, to try to understand where they're coming from. Because at the end of today's passage, James will speak about bridling one's tongue, that there are times that we shouldn't say things. For example, especially gossip. The good rule of thumb for gossip: is it true? Is it kind? Is it helpful? If it's not those three things, then it is gossip, and we should avoid gossip, because gossip can spread a poison about another person, and that poison can have insidious effects. We should be pure and undefiled, both in the way we act and in the way we speak. And then James also says, don't only talk about your faith, don't only feel that you are in faith, but rather express your faith. Don't only be a hearer of the word, but also a doer. And this is where we have a corrective of St. Paul. St. Paul says that we're not justified by works, we're justified by faith alone. And James would agree with that. But then he says, how do you express your faith? If your faith is only a theory, then it's not really faith, it's just a theory. Faith has to be lived by what we do. The Gospel is from Mark 8, 22 to 26. Jesus heals a blind man, but after a first intervention, he says, "What do you see?" The man says, "I see people, but they look like walking trees." Now, if he was blind, how does he know what walking trees look like? And the response is, it doesn't say that he was blind since birth. That's a different story found in John chapter 9. This story, the man was blind and he probably had lost his sight at some point. So Jesus has to intervene a second time, and then the man sees clearly. Why did it take 2 interventions? Well, this seems to be a faith miracle, a miracle that Jesus performs in order to speak about the faith of his family and his disciples. When they first came to Jesus, they thought they saw clearly, but their vision of his mission was distorted. They were only thinking of what they could get out of it. It's only at the cross that they fully understood Jesus' message. Now, it's interesting, there's another faith miracle in the Gospel of Mark, and that's of the fig tree. Jesus is going to the temple for Passover, sees a fig tree, doesn't have figs, and he curses it and it dries up and withers. Now, that's kind of odd because Passover is in April. That's when Jesus was going to the temple. And fig trees in Palestine bear figs in September. That fig tree wasn't supposed to have figs. That's another faith miracle. Jesus came out of season in a way that the people didn't expect him. The Pharisees and the Herodians nevertheless should have seen his signs, the signs of the miracles, the signs of his teaching, and accepted him, even if he came in a way they didn't expect. Since they refused, they dried up and withered like that fig tree. In the Gospel of Mark, there are only 2 faith miracles. The man who needed a second intervention, who don't get it right at first but eventually get it right, and the Pharisees who never get it right. There's no one who gets it right from the start. Mark reminds us that faith is not easy. It's something that has to grow, and something in which we often make mistakes. But if we learn from our mistakes and surrender, then eventually we'll come to that second intervention, our cross, in which we'll fully understand what the call is all about. And may God bless us.